you get a text for that?
That's what it was.
I feel like somebody should bless the food.
It's like the quietest minute every month. Yeah. It's 5 o'clock.
Good evening, everyone. It's 5 o'clock, April 25th, 2023. It's time once again for our monthly meeting of the Board of Directors of the Glasgow Electric Plant Board. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order. The first item on this evening's agenda, we'll consider the approval of the agenda. If everybody's looked over, is there any questions or anything on that? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion.
Have a motion by Lowry.
Second.
Have a second by Stevens. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Say no. All right. Motion passes. Number 2, we'll consider the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. I'm sure everybody's had time to look over them. Did anybody find any discrepancies or anything on this, on the minutes? Everything looked in order to me, so I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion by Rowlett,
Second.
and a second by Oliver. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes. Number 3, we'll consider the approval of electric vehicle charging station construction bid. So Dave, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure will. So we received a bid from M&L Electric in the amount of $43,844 to install the DC fast charging stations in the South Central Kentucky Cultural Center parking lot. I think everyone has had a chance to get there to see that location. So the bid includes all the site work, all of the electrical work, the striping that needs to be done to get the charging stations up and running. And again, M&L Electric has installed several of these throughout the valley. They do good work, and recommend that the board approve the bid for $43,844. Wade, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
I think you pretty much covered it there. It's just, they'll be, as David said, they'll handle all the construction, the wiring, striping, the whole project. Essentially, we'll just be building the transform bank and pulling the secondary wire to the point which they'll take it from the metering point and continue on.
And I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to meet you down there and look at everything and explain how it was all going to work. It painted a much clearer picture of why it was a good investment and what it would offer people who live here and who travel here.
Yeah. And this number fits within the overall budget. It was last July, I believe, at last July's board meeting that we approved the overall project of roughly $200,000. And this number fits within that budget, along with the cost of the charging stations and the work that we're going to do. As a reminder, TBA is paying 80% of that $200,000, and the city is also making a contribution to the cost as well. So I don't think I have anything else unless there's other questions.
Wade, in other cities and stuff where they have these charging stations, what are they doing for security? Like cameras, or do you know?
There have been a few, with some camera installations. Others, of course, have not. You're just trying to pick a parking lot that's well lit, surrounded obviously by other businesses or a lot of traffic. That's the main focal point. It's for twofold: one, being security, and then two, for the use of the charging stations. So.
And we do have, places there where we can install a camera system. we think that becomes necessary, and it probably will be, to just have it on those stations for security, you know. But
Okay. One more, is it covered? I don't remember ever talking about the
No.
stations, it's open, okay?
no, they'll be open.
Be open, okay.
That'll probably evolve as time goes on.
Yeah.
Because right now, charging stations generally aren't covered, whereas, you know, when you
Mhm.
pull into a gas station, there's a canopy over the pumps most of the time. So I'm sure there'll be some sort of evolution there with these stations.
I've seen some, you know, they actually have covers that are kind of
Yeah.
formatted to go with the EV charging stations
Yeah.
and all that good stuff. So I'm sure in the future those will probably be more readily available.
Mhm.
One point I was going to try to make too tonight, I just want to make sure it's in the minutes that this was going to be approved or paid for, funded mostly by that TVA,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
grant. So I just want to make sure that that was in there, and you've already
Yeah.
spoken to that. So
Mhm.
80%, right? Yeah.
Right.
Plus
Yep.
the city's contribution.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The net cost to us really is minimal, and most of that will be a lot of the call it in-kind, is work, you know, that our engineers have done and that our construction crew will do to, you know, put our transformers in and plow the cable, so.
Yep.
Any other questions for Wade or Dave or anything? Okay, I'll read the motion so we specifically get it correct. I'll entertain a motion to accept the bid from M&L Electric in the amount of $43,844 to install 2 EV charging stations at the South Central Kentucky Center parking lot. So do I have any motions?
Motion, Lowry.
Motion by Lowry.
Second, Rowlett.
Have a second by Rowlett. Any other discussion? All right, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes. Number 4, we'll consider the approval of mutual aid payment made to the city of Marietta and the Marietta Power and Water.
Yeah, so this, as we had talked about in the last meeting, we had the city of Marietta, Marietta Power and Water provided mutual aid as a result of the March 3rd windstorm. And arrangements were made for the assistance were made through TBPPA and KMUA. And the crew from Marietta sent 9 people, 2 bucket trucks, 2 digger trucks, equipment trailer, you know, pickup, and they were here they were working on site for 3 days, and then it was Saturday. They traveled here between 4 o'clock Saturday evening, and they got here around midnight on Saturday, and then they left on the following Wednesday. So the cost for that mutual aid was $82,014.80. That includes all of the labor, all of the equipment, all of the expenses, the travel. You know, that's the final invoice from them. So we really do appreciate the work that they provided. The report back from our foreman that worked with them during the time that they were here said that it was a great crew, that they knew what they were doing. They did great work, and were very instrumental in helping us get you know, our customers back up and running. So, but then, you know, the 82,000 is a big number as well, and we were on the other side of this when Bowling Green had a tornado. We had a crew of guys working over there for 10 days straight. So
Appreciate the crew that came. All righty, is there any questions or any more discussion on that? Okay. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the payment made to the city of Marietta and Marietta Power and Water in the amount of $82,014.80 for mutual aid provided in response to the system damage caused by the March 3rd windstorm.
Motion.
Have a motion by Oliver,
Second.
second by Stevens. Any other discussion? All right, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. Number 5, consider the approval of 750 kVA pad-mounted transformer from Brownstown. And Dave can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this, if you recall, the last meeting, we approved several transformers. One of them was related to Don Franklin, as is this one. The one that we approved last month was to replace the existing Don Franklin transformer at their existing dealership. That transformer had been leaking, and we moved it out back here, and we're getting that one fixed. We did some other switching around, but at the end of the day, the transformer we purchased last month was to put in our stock. This 750 kVA is for a new Don Franklin dealership that is going out on Happy Valley Road. This transformer will serve the new building, and there's going to be EV charging stations associated with that building as well. Something we talked about last month again was there's a couple of other situations where the EV charging stations are separate. This one, the charging stations are part of the building and part of that service. So that's what this 750 is for. This 750 kVA transformer is a little bit more expensive than the one we approved last month. I believe last month's was roughly $25,000. This one's $28,736.84. So.
Even at that price, it's much more affordable than the other
Yeah.
bids you got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pretty big discrepancy.
There is, yeah. And some of those bids are for new, and, you know, it's kind of, yeah, you look across the board at what's available and what the prices are, so. It'll be nice when we get back to being able to buy new transformers for a reasonable price. I don't know when that's gonna be, though. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one's specifically for the new building and the EV charging
Yeah.
station for Don Franklin?
It's for their new dealership
Yeah.
that they're putting in that will include EV charging with it,
Okay.
so.
Okay. All righty. Any other questions?
What's the lifespan on transformer?
It should be longer than what we have seen in some cases recently. I mean, typically, I would say a pad mount transformer is going to be good for, 25 to 30 years, easy. We've had some recent ones that not necessarily have failed, but have had issues within 5 years or even less. So there's a lot going on in the transformer world, even though transformers are really a simple piece of equipment. It's really, copper windings around magnetic cores, and it's, just a ratio of so much wire on this side versus so much wire on this side in simple terms. So there's no real moving parts, but they're changing the material requirements within the core of the transformer and then within the steel, and it's been creating havoc in the industry, which is why there's a shortage of them. I think it's why we've seen some problems with them. It's a case where making improvements hasn't necessarily been always an improvement. But I think the goal with some of the changes has been to increase the efficiency of the transformer, fewer losses. If you have fewer losses across the country with transformers that are going in, that just creates better energy efficiency. But there's been all kinds of issues with these material changes as well. So that's a long answer to your question.
I understand.
Yeah.
Especially the times we live in.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Any other question? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the purchase of a refurbished transformer from Brownstown in the amount of $28,736.84. Do I have a motion?
I make that motion.
Have a motion by Rowlett.
Second.
Have a second by Stevens. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Motion passes. All right, number 6. We have a guest here this evening, Mr. Thomas Grubb from EUDS Consulting, and he's going to, I guess, talk to us a little bit. And we're going to consider the approval of a consulting agreement with this company.
So I think first what I'm going to do is have Wade just go through. We have some more updates on that March 3rd storm. And I wanted Wade to just give the board an overview of what went on that weekend, and we got some photos and things like that. So Wade, if you want to go ahead, and then and then I'll have Thomas talk about how they can assist us with the effort to get FEMA reimbursement.
First off, of course, as we have all heard, read about, and discussed, the major windstorm that came through the lower Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley on Friday, March 3rd, with wind gusts anywhere between 60 and 80 miles per hour. And locally here, it was a record low pressure that was set at Louisville and Bowling Green. And I think there, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit away from it, I believe it's around a 66 mile an hour was our maximum gust that was recorded there at one of the sites in Marion County. Yes, that was intense, but the bigger piece of the picture was how long, the duration of the storm, for us to be able to sustain that for such a long time. I have a few bullet points here just kind of highlighting the event. Again, storm Friday, March 3rd, approximately a 5-hour event. It began around 1:20 Friday afternoon and lasted up until about 6:30. At some point Friday afternoon into the evening, we had around 5,000 meters or customers out. By late Friday evening into early Saturday morning, we had all but about 350 restored. We worked Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to restore those customers, and the last customer was restored at approximately 6:30 p.m. on Monday evening. We have 8 substations, 23 total distribution circuits. 15 circuits blinked, meaning that the breaker feeding that area opened and closed maybe once, maybe multiple times. So you were seeing that short duration, but they were able to operate. Of those 15, 11 of them locked out, and in our world, meaning they opened up or you're without power until we manually get out there and figure out what the problem is and are able to get that restored. So again, 11 of the 23 were locked open at some point Friday. We also completely had lost 3 substations and their associated circuits due to a tree that had broke and fell into the transmission line. It was over in the Gorham Park area, feeding a lot of that side of town and kind of the center part of town around Front Street, all the way up into Lexington Drive area. Around 15 to 20 broken poles, approximately 9 transformers that wound up being damaged that had to or required replacement, and office personnel, everybody, all hands on deck. We fielded over 3,000 phone calls between Friday and Sunday. Jumping kind of into some of the major damage that we had, this particular pole was a 69 kV transmission pole. It also has distribution underbuild there on it. It's all South Lewis, and you would be looking toward Highway 63 toward Temple Trace as the picture's taken. It goes across below the Hero Center, if you're familiar with Hero Center. It's just south of that area, and runs up to feed over to Woodlawn and back up Temple Trace. One of the major issues with that, as you can tell, it's the low-lying area. So in these next slides, what you'll see is we spent a lot of time dragging trucks in and dragging trucks out with a D6 dozer. It was our only way in and our only way out. So these are pictures of the crew out of Georgia. They were able to replace that pole for us and get everything back in the air. This was a 3-phase pole off Macbeth Lane. And like a lot of them that we ran into, and you'll notice as we go through these, it'll say rear easement, and meaning, what it says there, they're in the rear of the property. So you're having to get off the road to get to them. Early on, a lot of your design from years ago was to put it in the rear easements to keep it out of sight of the front of the homes, and it's pretty, but it's hard to work on. So that's where a lot of our struggle was with getting into these areas.
Yeah, it's really tough to get into backyards in the city where the poles have been there for 30, 40 years or more.
Scotty Drive.
Yeah, that's right by the middle school and high school there.
Yeah, kind of right across from Highland there. It was another three-phase pole. It had some challenges with it. It had an underground single phase that come off of it when the pole was restored, and trying to work the underground back to fit. So a little complicated there in the way that it was fed. So we were able to make some improvements as well as getting everything back on in the same sense there. South Broadway, this would be right there at Farmers Rural Electric. You can kind of see their fence to the right of the pole. It was, I don't know, I guess it was 2 days kind of. The power was still on.
Yeah,
So
so
it
the pole
was,
stayed like
it
that
wasn't
for a
going
couple
anywhere, so we were able to, it looked bad, it was challenging, but we were able to kind of move it to a lower priority due to no one being out from it. Hereford Lane, I know it's kind of hard to see. There's the transformer here. You can kind of see the pole in the background, but the obvious problem, again, rear easement, tree fell, and taking it out. Maplewood Place was another tree in the rear easements that had fell through some large limbs, and tree had fell through and broke our phases. I'm not sure that we had a broke pole there, but I'm positive that a couple of our spans were down on the ground. Kelly Drive, I wish I had some pictures. I don't know if any of y'all were able to see it after the storm, before any of the restoration started to take place, but it was literally like a bomb that went off, and there was things, there was stuff everywhere.
And trees were in different directions. It wasn't all one direction, which was odd.
Mm.
We were fortunate enough to have our tree contractors that were able to stay out ahead of us and get a lot of that legwork done, so that when we got there, we were able to set poles or get wire back in the air or whatever we had to do, and not spend so much time clearing trees. Mayfield Plaza, over kind of behind the Housing Authority headquarters there. That was a service pole that you see laying there. What I mean by that is secondary. It wasn't primary voltage, it was all secondary in one of those apartments. That was hard. It was going to be hard to put it back like it was, so the ultimate decision was made that we would go underground. So hopefully we'll never face anything like that, at least by a tree. So it's very difficult to get in there. So that work, it's kind of still ongoing. Everybody's back on, and has been back on, but the permanent fix is still ongoing to get that completely finished up. This will provide a few more pictures of
It really, so the lady was still living in that unit that the tree is on. She stayed there the whole time over the weekend.
Gorham Park, this is the tree I was speaking of when we had 3 substations that were completely out due to it being on our 69 kV transmission portion. The way we were fed out of our East Glasgow station, being one of our TVA delivery points, coming out of there at 69 kV to feed 2 other stations. And then obviously itself, the distribution feeding out of East Glasgow. So at one point we had all of those circuits out. Haywood, coming out of our Haywood station on our 69 kV line, feeding kind of the center of town, coming down the bypass right here in front of the office, that circuit there. You can kind of see the trees laying on the fiber. It did fall through the phases and blink the circuit, so we did see just a quick momentary interruption, but however we got lucky, it landed on the fiber, didn't break the fiber, so we were a near miss on that one. These are, the next pictures are some of the secondary damage that we had. And again, meaning secondary, our secondary voltage going to your house. So it wouldn't be in our primary lines, but a lot of services. Wound up having multiple homes, multiple locations that had secondary damage that required us to disconnect power from it due to safety issues for a long range of time, multiple days, until an electrician was able to come in and make repairs.
And when we get to this point, we're working at just repairing service to one customer a lot of times, and that's where it gets to be a long time to get all the customers back on, because instead of getting 8 or 10 or 20 customers back on when you repair something, now it's one at a time, and each job takes sometimes as long as repairing primary, because you might have to repair the transformer, you got to get the trees out of the way, run the secondary, sometimes set a new pole. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's still a lot of work that to get one customer back on.
Same scenario here, as far as our end of the
Now
damage
this,
was.
and this customer didn't lose power until we
Yeah.
went over there to disconnect it, to get the, remove the tree and have to rebuild it, but he had power throughout the weekend until we got there, so.
Another one there. Same issue, secondary issue. And then same scenario here was an overhead service, tree falls through it, tears it off the house.
Yep, so the result of all of that was roughly, a work order is approaching that we put together for this event is approaching, $400,000 with materials, our time, the crew from Marietta that came up. And because there was a disaster declaration, it's eligible for FEMA reimbursement, and that's where Thomas and his company come in, is to work through that process of getting funds reimbursed by FEMA. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to you, and you can kind of give us just how this all works.
Okay. My name's Thomas Grubbs. I live here in Glasgow. I work for EDS Consulting. We're an electrical engineering and disaster management firm. For the last 8 years, we've supplied technical assistance contractors directly to FEMA to assist in these types of situations. In the last 4 years, we worked directly with local applicants here in Kentucky and Tennessee on applying for FEMA funding. I've worked directly with several applicants myself. On the handout that I gave you on the second sheet, I listed these clients. On the municipal utility side, I've worked directly with Mayfield Electric and Water, Hopkinsville Electric System, and Benton Electric System, all following the December 2021 tornadoes. A lot of that work is still ongoing. Those are very large projects. Like Dave said, your estimate here is $400,000. A few years ago, FEMA would have considered that to be a large project. Your outlook on getting reimbursements would have been in your order of 4 to 6 years on getting reimbursement. FEMA has changed in the last year what they call the small project threshold. And so your project is considered small. The process for getting that through FEMA compared to what it would be with a large project is fairly simplified. But obviously there's still a lot of hurdles that have to be jumped, a lot of T's that have to be crossed and I's that have to be dotted. That's the assistance we provide applicants are navigating the process. FEMA has electrical specialists, but the people that you as an applicant will deal with on a daily basis are not electrical specialists. There's a lot that gets lost in translation, and as an engineering company that has professional, electrical engineers on staff, we're able to translate between you, the applicant, and FEMA, and make sure that everything is being transmitted appropriately, that you are getting a maximum reimbursement that you're owed. We also add value in offering mitigation services. We can provide mitigation proposals that FEMA would fund to harden your system, whether that's pole replacement, pole hardening. FEMA also has a separate pot of money available for mitigation that we help our applicants go after. With Mayfield Electric and Water, we help them get funding for a $16 million substation because they only have one delivery point from TVA, and that substation went down, and so the whole city was without power for a week. And so because of that, they were able to get FEMA funding to build a new substation. For Hopkinsville Electric, we were able to get them $6.5 million through FEMA to upgrade and harden portions of their system.
And I'd like to just elaborate on that point for a second. One of the, in the December of 2021, we did that bond issue for this very type of thing, to do system hardening, replacement of transmission poles on the system, with replacing wooden poles with steel poles. We also, we talked about the Cherry Street reconductoring and rebuild. That's falls under this idea of system hardening. But what one of the things that they can help us with is potentially get FEMA funding to help us accelerate that process. Because other things we would like to do is look at multiple routes for some of the core services that we need to make sure stay up and running. Things like emergency shelters, police and fire, city hall, hospital, to make sure that we have, and that's part of the system hardening as well, that we may be able to work into along with this reimbursement for this event. Any questions for Thomas?
Does your company do things besides just FEMA reimbursement?
The primary business is supplying workers to FEMA. We've done that for 8 years. So we have a roster of about 90 individuals that are all badged to work for FEMA, and so they deploy for various events. We also do just general electrical engineering services, which I think are on the back side of the first sheet that I provided.
And a portion of the services you provide, a portion of that's recoverable through this grant, right?
So FEMA sets aside 5% of your total disaster amount to cover management costs. So that can cover our costs or your costs. What we have found working in disasters in the last couple of years is our costs tend to be between 5 and 10% of your damage amount. And I think I told Dave that for a $400,000 event, that would be $20,000, and I don't see a reason why we wouldn't be able to deliver at that price.
Just to kind of stress the importance of this, how difficult would it be for the EPB to try to go this alone? Near impossible. The success rate is
Not impossible. You might have some burnout after the first 60 days of dealing with FEMA. I think it's a little frustrating. I can attest to that. I spent 2 hours on the phone today with FEMA for Mayfield. One of the issues that comes into play with FEMA is that their people are constantly rotating in and out, and so the person that you have on day one will not be the person that you end up with on day X. So we provide consistency throughout the entire process, so that you're not having to start from scratch every time a new FEMA person walks in the door. And we want to make sure that you're maximizing your reimbursement from FEMA, because the FEMA person will come and they'll help you do A, B, and C, but we want to help you go D, E, F and find the dollars that they're not going to help you find, because the money's there to make you whole, and we want to make sure that you get the maximum that you're able to get from FEMA.
Any other questions or thoughts, comments?
I think it's money well spent.
Amen.
absolutely.
Okay.
All right, if there's no other questions, then thank you for coming in and talking to us and explaining things a little bit. I'll entertain a motion to approve the not-to-exceed $15,000 contract with EUDS Consulting Services to assist the Glasgow Electric Plant Board staff with the FEMA Disaster Relief Grant application.
Motion, Lowry.
Motion by Lowry,
Second.
second by Oliver. Any other questions? All right. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. All right, motion passes.
All right.
Number 7, the superintendent's report.
So this is not going to be pretty. On my desk is the fuel cost adjustment.
Would this help you?
Yeah, the GEPB. Oh yeah, you got it.
That one.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
I left it on my desk, sorry. But
I've already looked at it.
yeah, Chastity has a copy, so. All right, so first on is the fuel cost adjustment for May, and it went back up a little bit this month, but it's still, trending lower than it had throughout 2021 and 2022. for this month, it is 2.36 cents that's up about 0.3 cents from February, so. From April, I mean. Nothing really to report on it, other than it's still trending higher than the 3-year average. But again, I think we're starting to see that level off and start to come back down. But then the one I really wanted to focus on is the outage report. So I'm not sure how to even really present it. There was 62 outages, but we had 5,000 customers out.
I think those images kind of tell the story.
Yeah. So I don't know that there's a lot of value in really going through these numbers. You know, we already went through it a couple of different times, but this is how it's being recorded when we report to the various agencies. So it's kind of an anomaly, but. And then the only other item is for our superintendent's reports is an update on the fiber to the home project. And I'll put Wade on the spot again just to talk about where that stands.
So Urban Cable Construction, they were able to get started yesterday. They were able to start framing poles yesterday, meaning they were putting the hardware on the pole. Today, they had I'm sorry, let me back up a minute. They had 2 crews come in yesterday. Today, they were able to add 1 more. So now we're up to 3 crews that are here working. So today, they had another crew that was pulling wire. So we're actually putting some fiber in the air. So, again, kind of a slow start, just getting familiar with our system and what we exactly expect and what we want it to look like. But I'm meeting every morning with their foreman and kind of filling them out and where they're at and any questions they have, or meeting them on site if they run into any issues. So it's going as expected. So far, so good.
Yeah. So we're really excited about finally getting that rolling. That's a big step. You know, it was a big step to get it approved, and now it's a really significant step to get
Anticipated completion now that they've started?
For this phase, we hope to start turning customers up, I would say, in June. It won't be before that we'll start turning customers up. But, you know, I think we'll have our first opportunity by then, I would say.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, thanks, Dave, for that report. And thank you, Wade. We'll move on to number 8, any new or old business that we need to discuss.
Just that we're moving the May meeting to Tuesday, May 16th. It probably will be a fairly short meeting, but I'm going to be out of town the next week. And then at that meeting, we'll go through have a first view of the rules and regulations. This has to do with the EV charging stations discussions that we've been having and extension of services to customers that are not right on our existing system. It happens very rarely, you know, but we really have these 2 things. EV charging stations with a low load factor, and then occasionally we have a customer that is a significant distance away from our system, and we're just updating the rules to reflect and help so that the existing customer base isn't footing the bill unnecessarily for, you know, new customers that are causing this expense. So be pretty straightforward, but that'll be on the future agenda. And that's all I got.
Okay. That's all the new business and old business. Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
By Stevens.
Second?
Second by Rowlett. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Meeting's adjourned.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.